Cloud. Okay. So here we are. Okay, so today we're just gonna be talking about orienteering for the Manitoba Indigenous Games coming up this spring. We are doing orienteering as a demonstration sport. So keeping that in mind, this means that we are introducing the sport to MIG. Unfortunately, with it being a little bit trickier in being in various different communities and making things even in terms of the course and the map and whatnot, we chose to run this as a demonstration sport. So no awards or medals will be presented for this event, but we're still going to support it and give you guys all of the training and resources possible to help you guys be successful with this event. So I'm just going to go ahead and just acknowledge our land and give a short prayer. So thank you for everyone who took the time out of their day to listen and learn from others, as well as to share their knowledge. And I would also like to recognize that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and Cree on Treaty 1 territory and on the homeland of the Red River Métis. So this is just an overview of the training that we'll be doing today. So next I'm going to just show you guys our numbers for orienteering. It was quite a successful registration for this, so I'm pretty excited. And I know that Manitoba Orienteering Association as well is excited to be showcasing their sport with our games. I'll briefly touch on the technical package, and then I'll hand over the screen and the presentation to MOA. Reine-Marie and Sébastien both here with us today to share all of their knowledge. Next, I'll just give you guys a couple quick tips and tricks on how to prepare for this event, which is basically what Sébastien and Reine-Marie will be doing with you guys today. And then just a quick overview of some important information that's been shared. So just to give you guys some numbers with this event for MIG, we do have 18 out of 31 schools registered for this event. So that's just under 60%. And of those 18 schools, we have about 750 students participating, which is really exciting for us. I definitely didn't anticipate that participation, but I think people are excited to get moving outside, especially, and by doing these new events or activities that they're not exposed to all of the time. I won't touch too much on the technical package. I did link it here in case anyone had trouble finding it. I'll just click on it quickly and show you sort of the layout to make sure that everyone's familiar with it. So orienteering, demonstration sport. We have our table of contents. So everything is linked here. If you wanted to click on one of these titles, it brings you straight to what you're looking for. So you don't have to scroll through the whole document. And it'll just give you an overview of what orienteering is, what the sport is all about, and then connects you with the Manitoba Orienteering Association. So I'm by no means an expert in this. I'm really just learning the sport myself. So if ever you need some more concrete information, I definitely encourage you guys to reach out to them. Just a little bit more here. It tells you how to set up your event, how to set up your control map, how to create your course, etc. So all the information is here. Once again, I don't want to go through it too much just because we want to keep it nice and short today. I know we all have had a long day. It's Wednesday. So on that note, if ever you have any questions about the technical package, I'm always here to answer any of those questions. So feel free to just let me know, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, and I'd love to discuss anything that you might have about that. And so I'm just going to hand over the presentation to Reine-Marie and Sébastien from the Manitoba Orienteering Association. I will stop sharing and it's all yours.
Yes, thank you very much for the nice introduction, and thank you to all the participants. It was really like a very incredible pleasure for us to see that orienteering was motivating people that much, and so it's a pleasure for us to give this presentation to show a little bit more about the association, but more about like how do you get started with maps, which can be a bit intimidating when you want to start the sport, because that's one ingredient that is very essential to do orienteering, is to have a map. And sometimes it's a bit difficult. And after, Sebastian will show how to use a compass and how to teach kids to use a compass. So some ideas about that. So first, so if you want to reach us, we have a website. On the website, you have the email address, and it's also in the technical package. You are really welcome to reach us. And everybody in the MOA is aware of this incredible collaboration that we have for the Manitoba Indigenous Game. And if even Sebastian and I, we took over to discuss this, but a lot of people are willing to help. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. So we are really a group of people that love to orienteer, and we have like about 70 members or a bit more sometimes. And I think about 30 of us are really active and organize events once in a while, like maybe 20. And we are a provincial sport under the umbrella of Sport Manitoba. And we want to support the sports in Manitoba, and because we believe that it's a very good skill to have, and also that it's a great sport both for your mind and your physical abilities. And that's why we really like it. So we hold a number of events from April to October, and also some in February. And so you are able to reach us anytime and to participate. If you are close by, of course, you are welcome to join us. And so if we need any resources, we help also with that. So the first event of the year, is this Saturday if you want, but it's a kind of a virtual event with an app. Because of COVID, we were not feeling safe to gather even outside. So we prefer to do a long event that you can do anytime you want, and it's in Saint-Malo. So you can look at the website if you want to try it. So it's anytime between the 20th to the 28th. So if you need any clinics after that, please let us know. We can help to teach things. So how to get a map and how to make a map. So there are many ways to get a map. So I will not talk about everything, but the first thing is you can check with us if there is an orienteering map already available close to you. So we have many in the southern part of Manitoba. The northest we have is Dauphin currently. And some of them are accurate, some of them are not anymore, some of them are too recent to be even on this map. So please reach us if you need a map or if you want to know if something has been done in the past, because sometimes it's lost in the memories and people remember that they have a map somewhere. So ask us. We have many in Winnipeg. But if you have no map, no problem, we can make your own. So the software that I use personally and a lot of people use is Open Orienteering Mapper, because it's free, open source, and it's regularly updated. It's a very, very nice software that I find relatively easy to use. Of course, it depends on people. So I will show you the software. But to create an orienteering map, you need something, a base map. So there is many possibility for base maps. You can use topo maps, this sort of thing. But what I will show you today is how to use Google Maps, a satellite image, to make your own map. So a satellite image can be used by itself. If it's sufficiently detailed, you can use it already as an orienteering map to place controls and tell kids where to go. But it's better to transform it in an orienteering map to see better the features. So the basic idea is that you will take a satellite image and you will draw on it to show features, vegetation, and fences, roads, and these sort of things. So here I will show you. So I chose to the University College of the North in Thompson as an example. It's really because I like campus maps personally, because you have always a lot of features in there. So if I go on Google Maps, I have here the University College of the North. And so I will extract this image by printing it. So I print, and then I can print the map and get the image directly. Then what I will do is that I will measure the distance on the map. Oops. I can measure the distance from one point to the next, and it will give an idea of the scale of your future map. So you want to know the real distance. Here it's about 700 meters, so that you relate to the sketch you will be doing. So 700 meters, when I copy this as an image, I can measure on the image afterward how many pixels it is, and then it gives me an idea of the scale. So then, once I have this idea of the scale, here I will not go into the technical details, but if you need help with that, I can. Here I determine that from my image that I extracted, I have 1.6 meter per pixel. So it gives me the scale. Then I have to check another thing, it's a magnetic declination. So Google Maps is orientated to the geographic north, but a compass shows a magnetic north. And depending on where you are on Earth, it's not necessarily the same. You have a switch, but it's not the same, in fact, at all. And in Winnipeg, the declination is about 2 degrees, 42 minutes. But depending on where you are in Manitoba, it might be a bit different. So you can check that by using the magnetic declination calculator online. So I put the website here, and you can check with your location what will be the angle you should put your map to be exactly matching the magnetic north. So I did that for my map, and for Thomson, it's 2 degrees, 34 minutes. So it will be about, you can calculate that in decimal after, 2.557 degrees. And then I can start playing with Open Orienteering Mapper. So I will just show you, this is the software I'm using. So what I will do is that I will create a new map. I will select ISOM 5000. That's ISOM is basically like a norm that we use for colors. So, and then it's ready to draw. Perfect. I will just open a template. And my template will be the image I got from internet. And then I put the scale, so 1.6 meter per pixel. That's what I use. And I open, and I have my file. Then I will just edit this. So on the right here, I have a template. So I have two things, the map that I didn't draw yet and the template. And then I will press edit, and I will choose positioning. And in the little box here, I will put a rotation corresponding to my declination. And I think that's the only technical things we need to do at the beginning to make sure that the distance is right and the inclination is right. After that, I just start to draw on it. So to start to draw, you have here a bunch of symbols on the right. And those symbols and colors corresponds to the different features of the land. So for example, if I want to, I see that there is a river here. So I want to put blue for the river. So I will redraw on top. So it will be ugly because I'm doing it very fast. Here. If I want to draw a building, like we have many buildings because it's a campus, we have one here. I will go on top of my building and I will draw my building. If I want to draw, for example, you have different vegetation. So open land is all land when you have no trees at all, when it's open. So basically all this is open land, all this area. And you have specific features that will inside. So you can draw open land. So I'm doing it a bit fast, but that's the idea. And you can change the opacity to see better what you are doing. And then you can draw like fences, for example. Like here, you have a baseball field that has fences around. So I will draw a fence. And all the symbols are described on the right here. So it's impassable fence or railing. And you have like sandy land in the middle of the baseball field. So I can choose, for example, to draw a circle, and I have my sandy land. So, and the last thing that I can show are two things. You have like vegetation, like green is when it's very difficult to run. But if it's white, it's an easy running forest. So depending on the type of vegetation, you will have different colors. So, for example, here, green. So it's very ugly because it's very square, but you can transform every single thing in a round shape so that it looks a bit better. I didn't do it, but I have a problem with my mouse. So it's more round now. And the last thing is that you have paved road or unpaved road. For example, the footpath here, I can draw it with this color, and I can go around and show the path. And so if now I remove the background and I put 100% color on my map, I have this. So it's a beginning, it's a starter. We have like, I did that in 5 minutes. So it's not a full map, but that's the idea of how you draw a map. You take and then you patch colors. So it's not extremely complicated. The map I chose is a bit complicated because it's a full campus map. It's 700 meters high, but on a schoolyard, it's much easier. So you need to place all the things. So that's the things I did yesterday evening. So in 30 minutes, I had more time. I was able to draw more. If I had like one day, like I would have finished it. So it will not look good at first, but you can round up corners. And if the image resolution is not good because the Google image is too big, then you can draw on top of little parts and combine them together. Then the last step will be to go on the terrain to correct and add features. So you will not see everything. You don't see under the trees. So you need to go and watch, is there any features? Do I have open land here? Do I have, for example, a clearing that I don't see in the forest? So you can add by hand. So then you walk on the land with a map and a pencil and you just draw. And then you go back to your computer. For schoolyard, it's much easier. This is something that I draw for summer camp, and I did that in a rush in an afternoon. So like it was a school in La Broquerie, and you see like it's completely usable. It's a nice schoolyard, and the kids were able to run on the yard. So that was good. So those squares are man-made features. It's a play area, the playgrounds, and the dots are the trees. So now, how do you set up a course? You can use the same software, so the Open Orienteering Mapper, and exactly the similar to before. It's another feature of the program. So so if I go back and I do new, then I can choose to have course design instead, create. And then I can open, I need to import a template again. And my template will be, for example, I will take the course I did, for example, in Thomson, for example, the map I did yesterday night. So it's not a complete map, but you can imagine that it's complete. If I want to set an orienteering course, I can use those symbols here. So for example, I put the start in the corner of the baseball field. Then I will put one in the corner of the building. Then one in the bend of the road. One again at the corner of the baseball field. Then I will probably bring them at the trail junction to make them go there and go back, I don't know, at the corner of this building and then finish. That's an example. So this will be a course, for example. And then I can put numbers. So for example, 1 and 2, etc., etc. So that's a line orienteering. So it will work. You have another possibility. If I remove that, is to do a score orienteering. In this case, you set up a start, for example, the same area, and then you will put only controls at different locations. For score orienteering, you need sometimes more controls because you need to have a challenge. Some people will struggle to finish. You want them all to finish, but you need to have like different times for different people. So you need to have like more controls and harder ones to find and easier ones. So I do, for example, a course like that, and then I number them. And that will be the controls they need to find. Oops. I cannot count. 3, etc., etc., etc. So that's the 2 different options you have on a map like that. So then what we do usually in orienteering is control descriptions, because you need to know what you want to find in this area. So if you go, for example, at number 1, you want to know that what you are looking at is the end of a fence. For such an easy course, it's pretty obvious, but sometimes it's not that obvious, especially if, for example, I set a control in this area where my mouse is. So it's the corner of a baseball field here. I can either put it inside or outside the corner. But depending on what I do, if you go on one side and it's not there, or if you plan on going on one side and it's not there, then you have to go around. So that's why the control description are here to tell you where you want to go, inside or outside, for example. So in complex terrain, it's very important. So it's less important, but it's a good habit to have control description. So it can be done in Open Orienteering Mapper, but I advise Word because you see it looks not very nice what I did here. I don't know how to expand the box. So yeah. And you have an alternative to mapping. So sometimes schools' yards are too small or places close by are dangerous for kids. You don't want them to be out in the woods nearby for whatever reason. And sometimes you just have no time. So in this case, you can try maze orienteering. So you can find this manual online for free, and it shows this example. So basically, you can, instead of doing a map of the terrain, you will create the terrain with the map that you already have. So that's a map, and you will create it in the schoolyard. So this is a picture of a maze that was done for an event in Scandinavia. And basically, you put controls in the corners, and the kids have to go there the fastest they can. And you can make them very big. You can make them with everything. It can be ropes, it can be posts, it can be, I mean, that's an easy solution. I will forward the link, yes. It's in the manual here. It's free online, so I will give the link. I will copy it to the chat. And maze orienteering can be done. You have green, blue, red, different colors. It's like ski hills. We don't have a lot in Manitoba, but it's a difficulty level. So basically, you have easy ones, and the more you can get something very difficult. So maze orienteering is good when you have younger kids and older kids. So you mix, you can mix difficulties like that for the same event. So it can be very big. And you have also a simple variant of maze orienteering that can be done. So here it's a maze without a maze. Like you don't even have time to put ropes. So then you put controls in symmetrical square pattern, and the kids need to go to all the controls in the right order in the fastest time. So for with punches, it may be difficult to check. But with a timing unit, maybe it's a bit more appropriate. But why not? I mean, if the kids are really nice and they are absolutely not cheating, then it's something very very nice too. So now Sebastian will present how to use a compass. I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay. So I just put the link in the chat for the manual that Reine-Marie was talking about. So here I will just present two different things. First, I will explain how to use the compass in during an orienteering event, and also I will and after I will talk a little bit about what kind of exercise you can do with kids to teach them how to use compasses and also how to use maps, because we don't necessarily you need a compass to use a map. So, okay, something is not working. Okay, perfect. So an orienteering compass will look like that. So you have a picture here, or I have also one in my hand. And you have different things that you want to see. So first, you want a compass with such a plate. You have the dials that you can spin, and you have different arrows. You have the direction of travel arrow, which is the one which is fixed on the plate. You have the orienteering arrow, which will spin with the little dial. And you have the magnetic needle, which will give you the north at any time, as soon as the compass is flat. And so this compass will be used for two things. So first, obviously, to give you the direction of the north. And also we can use the compass to take a bearing, meaning to know in which direction we need to go, depending on what we are looking for. So the first thing is to orientate the map, using the north. So every map that we have will always be oriented towards the north, meaning that the top of the sheet of paper is the north. And you have those black lines, which are called the north lines, which can be used, which will give you the direction of the north. So you just have to align the magnetic needle, so the little red part, with those lines, and you will have your map oriented in the correct direction with the terrain that you are on. But the second idea of the compass is to take a bearing. So the bearing is to determine the angle between the direction you want to go to and the north. And for that, I have a little video that I can show that will explain a little bit better how to use that. So I will run the video and do some pause to explain what's happening. So in this example, the person is at this corner of the field, so here, and wants to go to the control number 10. So from here, the orienteer needs to know the direction he wants to go through the field, because you don't want to end up in this corner, you don't want to end up here. So you need to determine your direction of travel from this corner. So the first thing to do is to put your compass on the map such that the plate of the compass, that's why it's important to have a plate, is aligned with the direction you want to travel to. So you want to go from here to here. So you put your compass in this direction. Then you turn the dial such that the big red arrow on the dial is aligned with the north line. So for now, we don't look at the magnetic needle. We just look at this big red arrow in the dial, which is aligned with the north line. So at this step, you already have your angle, so your bearing, in which you need to travel compared to the north, because it will be, the north is in this direction, and you want to go in this direction. But in order to have your actual direction of travel, you need to take your compass and put the magnetic needle of the north in this arrow of the dial. So you know that the north is here and you want to go in this direction. And after you keep your compass flat, and you can use the compass to know in which direction you want to go. And usually what you want to do, you look with your compass at an object that you want to go to in the right direction. So it can be a tree, it can be some man-made object, and you can use your compass in such a way to know where you want to go in this situation. So that's how we use a compass for orienting and to take a bearing. Okay, so now I will, if there is no question about that, and I can answer the question later, I will show a few exercises to start using a map and a compass with kids. So first, we want to be sure that the students understand what is the map, because it's not that obvious for young kids to understand what is a map. And for that, there is two possible explanations. One is that the map is an image of the world viewed from the top, so from a plane, for example. Or also you can explain that the map represents the world in miniature. The second idea might be better for younger kids. We might not be very have a good idea of what is the top-down vision of the world. So to talk about a world in miniature might be better for younger kids. And one thing that is very important, so of course, to use the compass during orienteering, it's something which is important, but it's not the only thing. And observation is probably more important, in fact, because at any time you want to know where you are on the map on what is around you. So for that, you need to look around you, look at the map to be able to relate what you see with what on the map. So it's even more important than the compass in order to know where you are. And just by looking around, you might already get a good idea of where you need to go. So that's something which is really important. It's observation and to relate the map with what you see around you. So for example, for map reading, if you want to start to learn map reading, to teach, map reading to kids, you will want to start with a very well-known area of the kids with a small map. And it can even be the classroom, for example. You can do a little map with the tables, the chairs, some cupboards, the blackboard, this kind of thing. So you can do a map of that with the kids and ask them to locate such and such object. Either you show on the map and they have to show in the classroom or on the terrain what is it, or in the other way around, show on the terrain an object and they have to show it on the map. So they can relate and go back and forth between map and the terrain. Usually maps, maps use symbols to represent, so we need also to teach the kids some symbols. So let's start with something easy, like if we stay with the classroom, like it can be a table. For a real map, a building, so the building will be the big gray square. So that's the building, and so you can ask them to relate the building with the symbols, and after go into more details with more symbols. And for older students, after you can start to give the idea of distances on the scale of the map. It's something which might not be that obvious for younger kids. So it depends on what age you are working with, that you can work with the idea of scale. But again, the observation is really important in orienteering. So for example, some exercise of map reading. Other exercise, so you can also, if you are in a well-known area, like the schoolyard or maybe a little neighborhood, you can show the picture of a well-known object and ask students to locate it on the map. So they have to show you on the map, okay, I know that it's here. Then they can draw the route that they will take to go to this object on the map and then do the actual route. So it will be a first exercise before doing an orienteering course where they don't know where they have to go until they see the map. Next, we need to teach how to use the compass. So the first thing that you need to explain with compass is the 4 main directions. So north, south, east, and west. And for that, it might be easy to work with a checkboard. Like that. But you can say the student to go from north, then east, then 2 north, then to 1 west, etc. And this exercise can be done either on paper, so you have an actual paper with a square, On they have to follow, okay, then we need to go north, meaning we need to go top, and after we need to go to the right. Or you can also do that in like in a gym, a little bit the same idea of the maze that Reine-Marie presented, but it will not be a maze, it will just be some square. And they have to follow, okay, I need to go 1 north, 2 east, etc., etc. Once they understand the concept of those 4 directions, you can add the combined direction. So northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. And you will see that you have some, they will see that there is some diagonal movement. And you don't always have like a right angle turn, but also some other angle. And you can also show the idea that, okay, one move northwest will be, northeast, sorry, will be equivalent to go to the east and then to the north, for example. Now it will be time to start to really use the actual compass, and we can do what we call the 3-leg compass walk. So that's a very fun exercise. And for that, you will ask students to start at a position, put an object, and the goal is to come back to this object by doing a triangle. So for example, they can start doing 100 steps to the north. Then they will turn their dial of the compass to 120 degrees. You can see that you have some numbers on the dial. So 120 degrees. Then they do again 100 steps. Then they add another 120 degrees. So it will be 240 degrees on the compass. And they should come back to the starting position if everything went well. So that will be a first idea of using the compass to give you a direction. And so you have some idea of bearing, because that's 120 degrees will be the angle between the north and the direction that they need to take. And finally, when they need to actually take the actual first bearing, the thing is to give them a map, take the bearing as it has been shown in the little video, but towards an object that is really visible. So for example, the next building, so they know where they are on the map, they need to take a bearing to the next building. And with their compass, they want to look with the direction of travel arrow of the compass to see if they point toward the building, so if they got a good bearing. And once they got the good bearing, after they will be able to use bearings for other things which are smaller to see, smaller that they cannot see from where they are, and they have to travel to. So that's it for the presentation. So that's some idea of some exercise to start to reading map or start to use the compass with the students.
Perfect. I know I have a question, but Sydney or Vanessa, if you guys have any questions, I definitely welcome them. Whether that's like to the technical package or if that's for Reine-Marie or Sébastien specifically and what they presented, I'll give you guys that chance, and then I will ask my question. I'll just watch the chat.
We have a question actually.
Okay, go ahead.
So we have our school that is in Dugald, Manitoba, and we're wondering if there was any course maps around our area.
So where are you?
In Dugald, Manitoba.
Dugald. Okay, let me check where I know the name, but I have to check where it is. Sorry.
It's just east of the city, Sébastien.
Okay, but we have a lot in the city. The closest one will be Kilcona Park in Winnipeg.
Okay, thank you.
Or Saint Boniface. We have a big one, brand new one in Saint Boniface.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
My question is also about the maps. So Reine-Marie, and Sébastien, sorry. Would you guys prefer if the schools try to make their own maps, or would it be more beneficial to work with you on creating them?
I think Sébastien can correct me, but I think it will be, it can be both. I think I will not have time to make a full map. but I will be very happy to help. So it means that if there is a technical problem, like for example, to get the first image, to orientate, for example, I can definitely draw also on the map what I see, but I will not be able necessarily to go there. So the part where you need to watch and look for, I don't know, there is a bench here, there is a tree here that I don't see, I cannot do. But if there is a school that really wants to create a map, but they don't have necessarily like the time or a software, like I'm used to use different softwares, but I know that it can be intimidating, so I can definitely help with that. So I think it would be good to be more like a job together.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, we can always help, but as said, to have a good map, we need to be there to see what's happening on. So we cannot do that for every school.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. That clarifies what I was had in mind. And then Sydney has a question more for me. He just asks, how will this event, so orienteering, be implemented as part of MIG? So just for those of you who are listening in on this Zoom call, from a MIG standpoint, how you can implement orienteering, you will be receiving the equipment that we can provide you. So we are going to be sending you compasses, flagging tape, which will mark each of your controls, and stamps. So you'll see that for each control, there should be a different stamp. And as the kids go through the course, they will stamp each control that they arrive at. And the point of each stamp being different is to prove, so to speak, that the kids went to each different one. How you implement this in your school, it's very individualized. If your school wants to take an afternoon and sort of do this with the whole, with either each age category or with a specific gym class, it's definitely up to your school. So you can set up your map and your controls however you'd like. And you can, like I said, it's very individualized to what your school is going to take on. It is a demonstration sport for MIG, so you don't necessarily need to keep time or score or anything like that. You can definitely just make this a more fun event to introduce the sport of orienteering to the kids. And another thing that I want to point out is there are school kits offered by Manitoba Orienteering Association. So if you would prefer to receive, Sebastien is holding a flag up. If you would prefer to receive the real school kits, you can definitely reach out to them and connect with Reine-Marie and Sebastien on how you can get those for your school, so that if you think that this is maybe a sport you want to do long-term within your schools, then it would definitely be useful to have that equipment. Sorry, just reading the chat here. Sydney says, I have compasses and a school kit from MOA. I just wanted to know how we demonstrate our participation and if there is any required info you need for that. Sydney, do you mean how to demonstrate the participation to the kids or to us, MASRC? To MASRC. No, since it's a demonstration sport, we don't really require you to demonstrate anything. We would really like for you to be able to take pictures or videos and to be able to share those, because we definitely want to feel somewhat connected in the way that we're presenting these games this year. But no, since it is a demo sport, you can just have fun with this. You don't need to prove or demonstrate whatever it is to us. I hope that answers that question.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Fuzzy, go ahead.
It will be, it's something for us, it's not such a big deal, but it will also be nice for the MOA to know how many people has participated to the event, because it will be good for us to work Sport Manitoba also for the numbers. So if we can have some rough idea, we don't need an exact count, but to have some rough idea, it will be really nice. And also to know from which school, to know the geographic area we got participant. So it's not something, it's not mandatory, but it will be helpful.
Mm-hmm. You know what, you actually bring up a really good point, Sebastien, because I suppose I misspoke a little bit. Following the event, like after you've hosted all your MIG events and whatnot, MASRC will put out sort of like a survey of follow-up for the schools, in which we will be asking some of those questions of participation numbers, gender, male, female, things like that. So thank you. That reminded me of that. So just on the slide here, how to prepare your school for this event. This is really what Sebastien and Rémarie have already gone through. Teaching your students how to use a map and a compass, preparing your course map by going onto Google Maps and creating that map like Rémarie showed us. And then trying to incorporate different variations of games on how to use your compass, like Sebastien demonstrated in his presentation. And another thing that I just want to touch on is within your school, you might want to consider determining some safety rules. So if you are planning to do this within your schoolyard, it's much different than if you are going to be doing it within your community or at a provincial park or things like that. So just a quick example of the safety rule might be that you have a maximum of, let's say, an hour to get all of your controls, and that you have to check in by a certain time to make sure that you are accounted for all of your students. So this is definitely something that you want to discuss within your schools with the different phys ed teachers or principals or whoever's involved in these games. Go ahead.
Yes, I have about like Dugald. I just looked at Google Maps, and if doing the map is a bit difficult, I saw that the Google Maps is very good. I mean, it's very detailed in this area. It really depends on where you look at in Manitoba, but I think you can totally use directly also like Google Maps pictures and put circles in the location of controls. When Google Maps is providing like very nice and detailed pictures, it can be completely enough for the kids to find out where they are and to know where to look at. So like it's better to have fun than to have a great map and not have fun. So it's totally possible to do that with directly a Google map if it's good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Vanessa says they have lots of open space and spread out wooded areas, so that should help. Perfect. Good.
Yeah, so for the maps, yes, that's something that looks really complicated, but yeah, don't be afraid. There's a lot of small solutions. So the one that Rémarie just suggested is a very good one to directly use satellite images, because it's really reduce the amount of work of preparation. But also don't hesitate to do what Rémarie presented about those maze orienting, which basically you create the map before it's on the terrain, so it's making things
and it can be a combination of both. Like you can do an orienting map far, and when they come close, you do a maze, and so it would be a race inside the maze. Like one of our members did that as a course one day. We had the course at La Barrière Park, and they finished at the finish side. They were a maze. And so like it added like some fun to the end of the course, you know, like and you can also combine, like keep the Google map, and if for example you have a wooded area with trails that are hidden, you can draw them by hand. So then you divide your work a little bit. You take care only of the pieces that are not visible, and you draw by hand on top for the part that are not visible. But you can really make like you are free to play around with all the tools you have here.
Perfect. Yeah, it definitely sounds, I mean, it could definitely seem daunting at first, but I think with all of the great explanations and examples that you gave, there are definitely options for all of those different schools. unless there are any more questions, I think I'm just going to wrap this up. I don't want to keep you guys too long. I know that it's our Wednesday afternoon or evening. So thank you very much to Reine-Marie and to Sébastien for having presented everything orienteering. And just so everyone knows, they've been very awesome to work with. They completely introduced me to the sport, and they're always very willing to help. So I encourage you guys to reach out to them for anything that you might need support with. And I'm just going to wrap up by recapping some important dates that we have coming up. So of course, we're going through our event-specific training sessions every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Next week, we have our Alaskan high kick training at 4 o'clock. I definitely recommend that you guys come on to meet with Kyle. He is from Alaska, and he's an expert in all things Arctic games. So it'll be very, very interesting to see the demonstrations that he can provide us and how to teach the students how to make those movements and how to make the kicks. We are still working on equipment, and we will be sending the equipment to you definitely before April. And then, of course, in May, you're going to deliver your games, submit your results by May 19th. And by the 26th, I will have ranked all the result submissions, and we will announce the winners. Just a few last things here. I did create a MEG Facebook group. So we will be using this platform to share communications, different information, video resources, things like that. So to become a member of this group, you need to add me on Facebook. My name is Gabby, MASRC, and then I can invite you to the group. Secondly, we have our MEG clothing and gear stores are now live. So the links have been shared with you via email this morning. If you have not received that email, please let me know because I want to make sure that you're on my list properly. So you guys can purchase clothing or gear anytime. The stores are available for you guys. And lastly, our informational videos have been, so the ones that we have so far are all posted onto our YouTube playlist. Our YouTube is MASRC Inc. And we have a MEG YouTube playlist there. So you can see the high kick games, I forget which ones are already filmed, high kicks, the big hoop, the foxtails, all of those different games are all on there. So I definitely encourage you guys to check out this playlist. I think that's everything that I had. Oh, finally, just some contact information here. So my email information is on the left, but I also included Reine-Marie and Sébastien's email here. So once again, just feel free to reach out to myself or to them for any questions that you have. That's all I have. So I'll just give one last chance here for questions from the group. And if there is nothing else, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you very much for your time today. And I'll see everyone next Wednesday. Okay, thank you, Sid.
Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Merci, à vous autres.
Thank you, bye.
Okay, à plus tard.
Plus.